Hi, it's Brian McArthur with DesignMyMedicare.com. Looking forward to our upcoming meeting. You were almost certainly introduced to me through your full service financial advisor. And my best understanding is that our upcoming meeting between you and me will probably include you requiring a gentle introduction to Medicare. And typically that part of our meeting is about 70 to 80% of what we're going to cover. And that's probably where most of the burning questions that you have are. So I recorded this, one, to give you an opportunity to start our meeting a little bit earlier, get some answers to some questions that have probably evaded you. I always joke around and say, they keep this Medicare thing just complicated enough that I always know I'll have a job tomorrow, which is a terrible thing to say out loud you're grateful for. But unfortunately, it's true. So understanding Medicare from a real human being tends to be helpful. So we can start that part of our meeting. Now, ultimately, we can just wait until we speak. If you'd like to provide some other information that my team and I would typically need at some point, we're happy to send you an encrypted email template to just gather probably the totality of information we would need to complete anyone's Medicare enrollment. No pressure, but if you shoot me an email and tell me that you want the encrypted email to reply to, we're happy to send it to you. I created this video to be really helpful for you to just listen to auditorily. You're welcome to look at me. I'm no better or worse looking in minute 1 than I am minute 38. But ultimately, this was designed to be listened to, and you're welcome to do that along the way. Okay, so I'm going to cover just some generalities of Medicare. Most of it will be relevant to you. Of course, there's going to be some things that are very specific to each individual client, and we would have plenty of time to talk about the specifics of your situation when we speak, because we're getting general parts out of the way. Okay, so here we go. Number one, I would like to impress upon you that whenever you go on Medicare, either at 65 or 67, if you're working until then, Medicare is usually good news to great news for virtually everybody. All of the mail that you get in once you turn 64 is all fear-based marketing, deadlines, penalties, consequences. Yes, those exist. There's a difference between possible and probable. Yes, penalties are possible. They're not terribly probable. It's very unlikely you're going to be exposed to any. And the whole Medicare industry is really trying to scare the stuffing out of you, which is really unfortunate, but that's the way it is. But I want you to know Medicare is usually good news to great news. What do I mean by that? In almost every situation, once you go onto Medicare entirely, you typically get one or both of the following: way better benefits than you're used to. Even if you're used to really good benefits, Medicare is almost always better. And it's way less expensive in real dollars. Take that last part with a grain of salt, because, if you are currently paying $1,000 a month for some individual family plan that just covers one person, you'll be doing cartwheels no matter what with Medicare. If you're self-employed and you're a realtor and you're paying $1,000 a month, cartwheels for Medicare. If you are currently working for an employer who is paying the lion's share of your monthly premium, which a lot of companies do, Medicare from a monthly premium perspective could be a little bit more than you're paying, a little bit less, could be a push, but even in those circumstances, the benefits are probably better. So you're probably going to get one or both of those positive attributes: way better benefits, maybe even better cost. Okay, Medicare is good news. Out of all the alphabet soup that you see and hear about Medicare parts ABC through XYZ, a full Medicare package really comes down to checking 4 boxes. I want you to think of a full Medicare package as A, B, C, and D. Okay? You check all 4 of those boxes, you've got a full Medicare package. Parts A and B, rather, come from the government. Parts C and D come from insurance companies. So that's the first line in the sand I want you to just kind of draw in your head. Okay. A and B comes from the government. C and D comes from insurance companies. Part A will become your new hospitalization benefit. You're not going to use it a lot, God willing, but if you're ever in the hospital, you will rack up some Part A expenses. Rather than boring you to tears with all the, uh, insurance vernacular in these evidences of coverage, I will explain Part A to you this way. I just want you to think room and board, food and beverage at the worst resort you've ever been to. Okay. So Part A expenses, of course, you'd only incur them if you were in a hospital. And the Part A expenses are basically just the cost of the hospital bed, the four walls, the crummy food, the nurses who I hope are nice to you. Those are Part A expenses. Okay. If you're not hospitalized, you're not racking up Part A expenses. Part B is how doctors get paid. And essentially, this is every old medical bill you could imagine, except for the cost of being in a hospital bed if you were in the hospital. So most of the activity or risk to you is in Part B. That's where most of the action is. So when the time comes that you have Parts A and B together, that's basically Medicare promising to pay 80% of your medical bills, 80% of your medical bills and 0% of your medication. So the government gets you pretty far down the road, right? 80% of your medical bills, none of your meds. If they do that for a low monthly premium, which is almost always the case, and we will test that theory in just a moment. And when we speak, you'll probably be prepared as a result of watching this video to give me some insight into your household income. But if the government gives you that 80% coverage for a low monthly premium, which is almost always the case, that's kind of why no matter what you do for Part C and D with the insurance companies, this is usually a good deal no matter what. Okay, so before we move on to Part C and D, let's talk about the cost of A and B. All right, here we go. Part A has no monthly premium. I would say it's free, but that's terribly unfair to you and or your spouse. You paid for it your whole life out of your paycheck, so that's why there's no monthly premium for Part A. Okay, so 0 for Part A. Part B will cost the average American $170 per month, 170. I'm filming this in 2022. We just got word today it's actually going down about 165. That usually does not happen where it goes down, but it is going down for 2023. So figure 165 to 170 bucks a month for Part B. So you just got 80% of your medical bills covered by the federal government for $170 per month. That's typically why no matter what you do for Part C and D, usually feels like a pretty good deal, okay? Because the government does so much and doesn't charge you a whole lot. Before we move on from that, that $170 can and will go higher based on your income. Now, 95% of the people who I help guide through Medicare come by way of their financial advisors. And if you allow me to generalize a little bit, if you are a client of your financial advisors, it usually means you've been a good saver, because you kind of need to be a client of your financial advisor. And if you're a good saver, it's not uncommon you also have high income. Additionally, it's also not uncommon that the last year that you're working is often the biggest income year you've ever had in your life. So I will tell you, without going too far down the rabbit hole, that if your income is over certain thresholds, $91,000 a year as a single filer, $182,000 as a joint filer, the government's going to charge you more for Medicare Part B. I'm not going to go through all the tiers. I will just give you an example. I'm going to go to the bookend. We're going to go worst case scenario. If your modified adjusted gross income, which nobody has memorized, and that's okay, was over 170,000 as a single filer or 340,000 as a joint filer, you would pay the maximum pound of flesh. In that set of circumstances, married couple earning over 340,000, you will pay more like $600 a month for Part B, where the average American pays $170, right? So that's the bad news. A few things you'll want to know is that the government is always looking at your tax return from 2 calendar years ago, okay? So as I sit here filming this in 2022, they are looking at everybody who's on Medicare, they're looking at their tax return from 2020. So what's not uncommon is that if I'm enrolling somebody in Medicare in 2022, maybe they made a bunch of money in 2020. And it's not that difficult if you're, exercising stock, or you have to take deferred compensation, or you sold a business, or you sold a rental property to get your income over 340,000. So when you and I speak, you might say, "Oh gosh, yeah, we earned over 340,000." My next question to you is, was that an anomaly, or does that happen all the time? More often than not, you will reply and say, "No, Brian, that was the last couple of years of us working, or I retired that year and I sold all this stock and exercised my options, what have you." And I say, okay, so once your liquidity events are over, so you've retired and, you sold your business, you liquidated some real estate, you had to exercise stock, what have you. My question to you is going to be, what will you be living on in steady Eddie income in retirement once the big piles of money have fallen into your lap? And typically, a lot of married couples, even with strong balance sheets, will tell me that they will be living on less than $182,000 a year in steady Eddie income, because that's still $15,000 a month. So in those cases, I don't need anything. Thank you, though. All right. The trash people were here to take out my office trash, and I don't have any trash. So anyway, bottom line is, I don't want you to get worried. We'll probably spend more time on this part when we speak. Even if your income was high 2 years ago, you're not trapped there, because in 2024, they're going to look at your 2022 income, 2025, look at 2023, that sort of thing. And there's even opportunities to appeal that big, ugly premium down sooner, using a form to declare a life-changing event. So I don't want to go any further into that, but a lot of you are in that situation. So I just want to let you know, we will cover that in detail and hit you between the eyes with the reality of what your hard dollar Part B premiums will be. For the balance of this video, I'm going to assume your Part B premium is $170 per month, because most of you, it will be that either immediately or over time. Okay, so $170 per month to give you 80% of your medical bills, 80% of your health insurance from Medicare, and none of your meds. Okay. All right. So from here, we're moving on to Parts C and D. Remember, this is when insurance companies come into the picture. Now, I will fully admit to you, I am cheating a bit in how I explain this. There is no consequence to the way I cheat, but a big part of what I do for you and your financial advisor is trying to turn a complicated topic into something simpler. And if I explain this the way the government built it, your head will explode, or at least mine will. So we're going to cheat. As you think of Part C, I want you to think of an insurance company stepping in to pay the other 20% of your medical bills. So remember, Parts A and B from the government covered 80% of your medical bills, none of your meds. Now Part C is an insurance company that covers the other 20%. And anytime you hear Part D, I just want you to think Part D is for drugs. Okay? Great. Okay, here's where I'm cheating. There is a fork in the road, two different ways to address Parts C and D. It is not good versus evil. It's not heroes and villains. Both options are pretty wonderful. It's just choosing the best version of wonderful for you. We don't live in a world of utopia. There's trade-offs. So we're going to discuss the trade-offs a little bit in this video, and then we can go deeper if necessary when we speak. Okay, so two paths to C and D. One path to C and D here, one path C and D here. One path is called a Medicare supplement plan. That is a synonym for Medigap. So Medicare supplement, Medigap means the same thing. And the other path is called Medicare Advantage. It's the only two ways to address the Medicare issue: Medicare supplement and Medicare Advantage. Medicare supplement plans will look and feel like the sexiest PPO plans imaginable. And Medicare Advantage plans for many, many years would feel like the sexiest HMO plans imaginable. So it's very disparate, right? However, I'm going to explain it that way to you. Sexy PPO, sexy HMO. And if I do a good job of explaining that, then I'm going to sprinkle in what's in the middle, because lately, in many parts of the country, there's starting to be an abundance of PPO Medicare Advantage options as well. So for now, we're going to cheat again. Medicare Supplement, sexiest PPO ever. Medicare Advantage, sexiest HMO ever. Okay. So Medicare Supplement, you keep all of the doctors that you know and love. And if you needed a second opinion across town, across the county, out of state, it's just fine. If the best left toe orthopedist for you was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you live in Seattle, you can go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. No issue seeing that doctor. No referrals. So far, it probably sounds like a PPO if you've been on a PPO, right? Okay. So it does feel like a PPO. It's actually even better than a PPO because a PPO may let someone from Seattle go to Albuquerque without a referral, but that doctor has a good chance of being out of network. You can still go see them, but with a PPO, if you go out of network, you pay more. 20 years ago, we paid a little bit more to go out of network. These days, we pay a lot more. So even if you have a PPO, you and I know you try not to go out of network, and it's not that difficult to stay in network. Okay. So that's what a PPO feels like. But a Medicare supplement is even better than what you know to be a PPO because there are no networks. So that doctor in Albuquerque, will not cost you any more or less than your doctor in Seattle or San Diego or Portland, Maine. So if your life depended on it, you literally could go to any doctor in the country without a referral, no cost difference between doctors, as long as that doctor accepts regular old Medicare Parts A and B. And then the supplement just, covers the other 20%. To give away the ending, about 98% of doctors in the country will take that. So essentially, you can go see any doctor that you want. The biggest portion of the 2% who you cannot see are at a medical group called Kaiser Permanente, which is very big in Southern California and some other places in the country. But if you're 65 and not already going to Kaiser, pardon me, you're not going to start. Okay. So life on a Medicare supplement plan, go anywhere you want, no referrals, no networks. The top version of a Medicare supplement plan, I'm not pushing you here. I'm just setting this as a bookend. I'd like you to think of this as good as it gets and as expensive as it gets, but it's not your only option. And keep in mind, when I say it's as good as it gets, there really are no bad options, but this is like the most robust Medicare package, if you will. It's called Plan G in most states. I'm going to call it Plan Great to get away from the letters for a moment, because if I start talking to you about Plan G to address Part C, you got it. Our heads will explode, right? Or at least mine will. So we're going to call it Plan Great. Every insurance company has a Plan Great. What does life look like on Plan Great? Well, number one, again, go see any doctor in the country. No referrals, no networks. We covered that. You would have an annual deductible of a whopping, I hope you're sitting down, $233 per year. So basically, your first doctor's visit every year is on you, because you and I know it's going to cost at least $233. And once you pay that $233 bill from your first doctor's visit every year, essentially, you'll go the rest of the year every year without seeing a doctor bill or hospital bill. So without you having to be a health insurance expert, you can probably deduce that if you can go see any doctor in the country, no referrals, no networks, you see a $233 bill once a year. And then unless your doctor charges for parking, you could pretty much leave your wallet at home. That's about as good or comprehensive or exhaustive as health insurance could get. Okay. So the big dramatic buildup. How much does this thing cost? Well, I'm recording this for my clients in 50 different states, so allow me to speak in generalizations. Generally speaking, in most states at age 65, Medicare Supplement Plan G, or what I call it Plan Great, will run, $140 to $160 a month in most cases. Goes higher as you have birthdays, but let's say $140 to $160 in most parts of the country. In addition, you would need a separate Part D drug plan to go along with your Medicare supplement plan. As a placeholder, I'm going to tell you those run $30 a month. But as quickly as I tell you 30, I'm going to tell you just that's kind of a placeholder. It's a wacky business. There are plans that cost $11 a month. Part D drug plans that cost $11 a month. There's plans that are $111 a month. It's wacky because in most parts of your life, if you pay more, you get more, right? That holds up, except when you get to Medicare Part D drug plans, because the monthly premium being high or low is not nearly as good an indicator of whether it's a good plan for you as you would think. So I'm going to tell you it's $30 a month, mostly so you never call me a liar, because I will tell you it's very unlikely that most of you need a plan that costs more than $30 a month. And it's just as likely that a plan that's 11 or 13 or 15 might do the trick. It really comes down to the medications you're taking or not taking. I care about the monthly premium. What I really care about is monthly premium plus the copays on the medications that you're taking. I want to add those together so we're looking at the hard dollars that come out of your pocket so we don't get distracted by monthly premiums being high or low. If you have a lot of meds, don't automatically buy the $100 plan because it may not be the best for you. Honestly, the least expensive plans are almost always the ones we go to. But bottom line is the laws of basic economics. Cheap is not bad. Expensive is not necessarily good. So I would need to know more about that before I gave you an idea of a drug plan. So if you're taking notes, I'd write down $30 so that I can surprise you and probably tell you there's one that's cheaper. Okay. So that's that. Okay. So we just covered Medicare supplement. So just to recap where we are before we move on, you got $170 for Medicare Part B. You'll pay that to the government. If you're drawing Social Security, they'll take it out of your Social Security check. If you're not drawing Social Security, they'll just send you a bill. $170 for Part B. Let's say $150 for Plan Great. So we're up at about $320, and then another $30, which might be high, but let's say $30 for Part D. You're at $350 a month. That is, for most of you, as good as it gets and as expensive as it gets, but it's not your only option, okay? But that's kind of what life feels like on a Medicare supplement plan. So maybe about $350 a month. If you want a dental and vision on top of that, if you're taking notes, I might add another $50 to $60 a month, and we will just evaluate, what options. Some of you might self-insure. Some of you may decline COBRA from your employer for health insurance, but you could keep the dental and vision for another 18 months. We'll explore all the options. Okay. So that's what life looks like on a Medicare supplement. There are other options besides Plan Great. I'm not going to bore you to tears with those, but we could shave down that $140 to $160 monthly premium down a bit if we reach into your pocket for higher copays and a higher deductible. It doesn't go down a lot, but I do want you to know there's other options. Before we move on from Medicare supplement, what I really want you to know is about $350 a month. So you can go see any doctor in the country, no referrals, no networks, see a $233 medical bill. And then you don't see any bills for the most part after that. You'll still have medication copays, but for doctors and hospitalization, for most of you, it'll be $233. Then you don't see a bill for the rest of the year. Okay. So that's what life looks like on a Medicare supplement plan. Now we're going to go back up to the fork in the road, and we're going to travel down the only other path to parts C and D. Remember, that is called Medicare Advantage. Now, again, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you the other bookend. We're going to talk HMOs first. The very first thing you'd notice about a Medicare supplement plan is it does not cost $150 a month for Part C and $30 for Part D. It often has a very low monthly premium, and almost always it has no monthly premium. That does not mean it's crummy coverage. It's actually magnificent coverage as long as the trade-offs are palatable to you. And we'll go through those trade-offs right now. Now, if you do a Medicare Advantage plan, you're still paying that $170 a month to Part B. You're not getting away from that, but you would probably have no monthly premium for Part C and D. Okay. What does life look like on a Medicare Advantage plan? Well, let's assume it's an HMO to start. You know the deal. I would only show you Medicare Advantage plans that your doctors are in network with, because most people want to keep their doctors, and your primary doctor is like your quarterback. He or she has to put through a formal referral to send you to a specialist. he or she is always going to refer you to their home team specialist in their medical groups. They're trying to keep all your care in their medical group and healthcare organization. All right. If you're in a major metropolitan area, being limited to one medical group and an HMO is probably not very limiting, but let's just be clear. You're not going to Albuquerque anymore for a second opinion. Okay. Your primary doctor is telling you what specialists you go to. Most of the time, you probably go to those specialists anyway, but just understand with an HMO, you have to. Now, Medicare Advantage plans, if they're HMOs, they almost always have no monthly premium, no deductible. You have copays for everything. The copays are not going to kill you. Depending on where you live in the country, it could be $0 to $20 to see your primary doctor and $0 to $40 to see your specialist. Preventative care is often $0. Labs could be $0, could be $20. If you were hospitalized overnight with a Medicare Advantage plan, could be $250 to $450 a night in the hospital, but they only charge you for usually about 6 nights, and then they stop charging you. So whether you were hospitalized for 6 days or 36 days, and if it was $300 a night, you'd get a $1,800 bill. All of these plans do have an annual out-of-pocket maximum limit. Depends where you are in the country. Could be, $2,000 to $3,000. A lot of parts of the country are $6,000 to $7,000. Even if it's $6,000 to $7,000, I will give away the ending. It is very difficult to hit an out-of-pocket maximum limit, an annual out-of-pocket maximum limit on a Medicare Advantage plan, because the coverage is, by most people's definition, so good. Cancer would get you to the max out of pocket pretty darn quickly with a Medicare Advantage plan. But other than cancer or needing dialysis, it's really difficult to get a bill that big. So you can start to see it's not heroes and villains here. It's not good versus evil. You can pay a monthly premium and have the sexiest PPO ever with a Medicare supplement plan. Or you could pay no monthly premium and have the sexiest HMO ever with a Medicare Advantage plan. Okay, so those are the two bookends. All right. Few other things I'd like to impress upon you. Joe Namath is not lying to you when you see him on TV. He says, give me your zip code and we'll, get what's coming to you, what you deserve. Medicare on its own does not cover dental, vision, podiatry, hearing aids, that sort of thing. Medicare Advantage plans. I know it's weird. The one with no monthly premium has all the freebies, but Medicare Advantage plans often throw in enough vision that you can resist the temptation to buy vision insurance. A lot of them will have a dental benefit in there. That dental benefit can range from worthless to you to something better than nothing. Sometimes it could be really robust. If there's any disparity between the dental benefit that's built into the plan for $0 a month and what you're used to, you can always pay, another $40, $45 a month to get a dental benefit that feels like what you were used to. Okay. So, Medicare supplement, sexiest PPO ever, Medicare Advantage, sexiest HMO ever, Medicare supplement, monthly premium, Medicare Advantage, no monthly premium in general. Now, if I've done a good job of explaining that to you, I want to sprinkle in what's in the middle. In many major metropolitan areas across the country, there's starting to be an abundance of PPO Medicare Advantage plans, kind of like Goldilocks' porridge, right? Not too hot, not too cold, just right, sits in the middle. And they've become very popular. So I'm going to spend a moment telling you about it. Number one, they usually, depends on your metropolitan area, but it's not uncommon that they also have no monthly premium or a very low monthly premium, certainly way less than the Medicare supplement. And they're PPOs. They're true PPOs, which is what you're used to if you've ever been on a PPO. Again, we would only look at the plans that your doctor or a list of doctors are in network with, because you'd want to get a plan with all of them in network or most of them in network. It's a real PPO, so you can go anywhere you want without a referral. If you go out of network, you will pay a higher out-of-network copay. 20 years ago, we paid a little bit more to go out of network. These days, you pay a lot more. It depends. Sometimes it's actually quite tolerable. Other times, it could be more expensive. Could you go out of network? Yeah, you're going to try not to, though. Okay. Just like any other PPO you've ever been on. So it kind of falls right in the middle. There's, no monthly premium, feels like, but it is a PPO. So it feels like a Medicare supplement, but it has no monthly premium, just like other Medicare Advantage plans that have historically been HMOs. There's a couple of trade-offs. You know, I'll spend more time chatting with you about this when we speak, but usually what I point out is, you can pay a monthly premium for Babe Ruth and get the Medicare supplement. You might be able to get Lou Gehrig for free. That's probably the metaphor you want to keep in your head if you're a PPO person, on whether you do PPO Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement. But we'll talk in detail about the few trade-offs that you should consider. Okay, so moving on, what else do you need to know? When the time comes, whether it's at 65 or later, when you fully go on to Medicare, if you choose a Medicare Advantage plan, HMO or PPO, you want it, you got it. We just sign up for it every open enrollment season. If you want to move from one Medicare Advantage plan to another, no problem. Very easy to do. Back to Medicare supplement, sexy PPO. Those normally ask health questions, which means you could be accepted or declined if you wanted a Medicare supplement. But if you're brand new to Medicare, which you will be either at 65 or whenever you lose your employer-sponsored health insurance, which is probably why we're going to speak soon, you get a one-time guaranteed acceptance into the supplement. So you could have the worst health imaginable. If you choose a supplement when you're new to Medicare Part B, you're guaranteed to get it. They cannot ask you any questions. They cannot decline you. They can never get rid of you. So there's a little bit of a bird in the hand dynamic with choosing the supplement immediately. Now, historically, where all the HMO or the Medicare Advantage plans are HMOs, it was very polarizing. It's like, if I want a PPO, I better take that guaranteed acceptance into the supplement immediately, because that's the only one that feels like a PPO. If I help you identify that there's PPO Medicare Advantage plans in your county, you probably don't need to weigh it as heavily, because you can have a PPO on either side. So we'll go into, that and how you might make that decision. But if there's PPO Medicare Advantage plans in your area, you probably don't need to weigh that guaranteed acceptance into the supplement quite as heavily as if you wanted no monthly premium for a while, but all the options are HMOs. But if one day you had to answer health questions to get to a Medicare supplement, they declined you, then you're trapped in an HMO. That's starting to happen less and less. So that's about everything I want you to know about the gentle introduction to Medicare. So next steps, what's important for you to know? Regardless of whether we're speaking because you think you're going on Medicare at 65 or later, I would encourage you to set up an online account at SSA.GOV. That's the Social Security website. When you are turning 65, we will have you log in and I'll show you how to enroll in either parts A or A and B, depending on whether, we do A and B if you're going fully onto Medicare. Most of the time, if you are going to continue working, we just enroll you in Part A. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't do a whole lot for you. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that. I'd say probably 80 to 85% of the time, if you're going to keep on working, we'll enroll you in Part A. There are some circumstances when I would tell you not to enroll in Part A. Okay. So we can cover that when we speak. Just wrapping up on a few other things, I will just share with you that when you go on to Medicare, your health insurance becomes pretty much amazing. It's probably going to be the best health insurance you've ever had. Drug coverage gets a bit crummier. Most of you will not notice it. But if you're on really expensive meds, you would probably notice that your out-of-pocket drug costs on Medicare, on the very best Medicare Part D plan I can find for you, still might cost you more than you were used to. In some cases, it is what it is. In some cases, it's all the more reason to stay on an employer-sponsored plan for as long as you can. So we will just weigh all the trade-offs and figure it out, okay? So if you could set up an SSA.gov account, that'd be great. If you already have maybe you're already on Medicare A and B, I would encourage you to set up an online account at Medicare.gov. That would be helpful to me. And finally, with no pressure. If you would like, I can send you an encrypted email requesting some additional information that at some point in time I would need to help you execute your Medicare enrollment. We don't have to do that, but if you want to provide that information to my team and I sooner, happy to collect that in a secure encrypted email. So maybe just shoot me an email at brian@designmymedicare.com and tell me to send you the encrypted email to collect more information. Okay. That's about as much about Medicare that I'd want to know if I were you at this point. So again, this was designed to cover about 70 to 80% of a first phone meeting. I hope it was helpful. Looking forward to speaking to you. And if you want to reach out, I never tell you what to do. I just tell you what works best. If you send me an email at brian@designmymedicare.com, I always reply. There is a scheduling link, and when you click on that link, you choose the day and time when you want me to call you. It's all about you. It goes right into my calendar, and I treat it like a sport to call you the minute you ask me to. Phone or Zoom works for me. That's typically better than trying to catch me on the fly. Not above playing phone tag. I'm just telling you what works best. Really looking forward to meeting you, and I hope this was helpful. One final thing. You'll probably never meet anyone who's met more financial advisors in their life than me. And for whatever it's worth, if I am working with your financial advisor, not to say I'm some big moral superior barometer for the world, but I really only work with financial advisors that really take their job seriously. Most financial advisors avoid the topic of Medicare like the plague. So the fact that you and I are being connected by your financial advisor is kind of notable, because your financial advisor goes through the extra steps of actually demonstrating some leadership and guidance to make available to you on a topic that most advisors just overlook and hope that you figure it out on your own. Okay, so that's it. Looking forward to speaking to you. Have a great evening.